Bavaria, May 1945. American soldiers advanced through the Bavarian Alps, clearing the last strongholds of the Third Reich. Near Berchtesgaden, they discover one of the most extraordinary automotive prizes of the war, a massive Mercedes-Benz roadster painted in a distinctive pale blue-grey, its interior fitted with luxuries rarely seen even in peacetime. This is Hermann Göring's personal car, a machine that embodies both the technical excellence of German engineering and the excess of Nazi leadership. Within weeks, this vehicle will begin a journey that will take it from the mountains of Germany to the streets of Las Vegas, from military showcases to private collections, becoming one of the most recognizable symbols of captured Nazi prestige. The story of what happened to the Blue Goose is a tale of conquest, celebrity, and the strange afterlife of objects that once belonged to history's most notorious figures. Hermann Wilhelm Göring was by 1945 a man whose power and influence had long been in decline, but whose appetite for luxury had never diminished. Once Hitler's designated successor and the commander of the Luftwaffe, Göring had spent the war years amassing an empire of looted art, stolen estates, and custom image possessions that reflected his grandiose self-image. His collection included works by Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Van Gogh, stolen from Jewish families and museums across occupied Europe. He maintained multiple residences, including Karen Hall, a sprawling hunting lodge named after his first wife, where he displayed his treasures in rooms designed to evoke medieval grandeur. Göring's lifestyle stood in stark contrast to the austerity preached by the Nazi regime, and even his fellow Nazi leaders found his extravagance embarrassing. He wore elaborate uniforms of his own design, adorned himself with jewels and medals, and indulged in banquets while German civilians endured rationing and hardship. Among Göring's many possessions was his collection of automobiles, each one carefully selected to project power and status. He owned several Mercedes-Benz vehicles, multiple BMW motorcycles, and an assortment of other luxury cars that he kept at his various estates. But the most famous of these, the vehicle that would become his most recognizable personal possession, was a specially commissioned Mercedes-Benz 540K Special Roadster, a machine that would come to be known as the Blue Goose. This car was not merely transportation, it was a rolling monument to Göring's ego, a physical manifestation of the wealth he had accumulated through his position in the Nazi hierarchy and his systematic looting of occupied territories. The Mercedes-Benz 540K was already one of the most prestigious automobiles of the 1930s. Introduced in 1936 as the successor to the 500K, it represented the pinnacle of German automotive engineering during the final years before the war disrupted civilian production. The car featured a supercharged 5.4-litre inline-8 engine capable of producing 180 horsepower in naturally aspirated mode, or up to 230 horsepower with the Roots-type supercharger engaged. This supercharger, which could be activated by pressing the accelerator pedal to the floor, produced a distinctive mechanical whine that became one of the car's most recognizable features. The 540K could reach speeds exceeding 110 miles per hour when the supercharger was engaged, making it one of the fastest luxury cars of its time. Its massive chassis provided a stable platform for the car's considerable weight, which exceeded 5,000 pounds in most configurations. The 540K's engineering represented a careful balance between performance, luxury, and the technical constraints of the mid-1930s, establishing Mercedes-Benz as the premier manufacturer of high-performance luxury automobiles. The 540K series was offered in several body styles, but the most dramatic and most expensive variant was the Special Roadster. This body style, characterized by its long hood, short rear deck, sweeping fenders, and aggressive stance, was designed to showcase the car's mechanical sophistication while providing an open-air driving experience. The Special Roadster sat low to the ground, with its bodywork flowing over the chassis in curves that suggested both speed and elegance. Large chrome headlights, an imposing radiator grille, and chrome-plated exhaust pipes running along the side of the body all contributed to an appearance that was both imposing and refined. Only 419 examples of the 540K were ever built between 1936 and 1940, and of these, the Special Roadster variant numbered fewer than 30, making it one of the rarest configurations. Each Special Roadster was hand-built at Mercedes-Benz's Sindelfingen coachworks, where skilled craftsmen assembled the bodies using traditional techniques combined with modern manufacturing processes. Production ceased in 1940 as Germany redirected its industrial capacity toward military equipment, and the 540K became a relic of the pre-war era. For those who owned them, the 540K represented not just a mode of transportation, but a statement of power, wealth, and access to the finest products of German industry. Göring's 540K special roadster was far from standard. Ordered in 1937 and delivered in 1938, the car was extensively customized to suit Göring's preferences and his role as one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. The vehicle was finished in a distinctive pale blue-grey paint, a colour that earned it the nickname Blue Goose among Allied soldiers who first encountered it. The choice of colour was deliberate, setting Göring's car apart from the more conventional black or dark grey finishes typical of official vehicles. The bodywork was crafted by Sindelfingen, Mercedes-Benz's coach-building division, and featured unique details that distinguished it from other 540K roadsters. Inside, the car was fitted with an array of luxury appointments that reflected Göring's extravagant tastes. The seats were upholstered in fine leather, the dashboard was adorned with polished wood trim, and the instrumentation was configured to Göring's specifications. The rear compartment included additional seating and storage for personal effects, while the convertible top could be raised or lowered to suit weather conditions. Göring also insisted on certain security features, including reinforced panels and bulletproof glass in key areas. And these additions were carefully integrated so as not to compromise the vehicle's aesthetics. The car was equipped with a powerful horn, external lights for official use, and fittings for displaying flags or insignia when Göring was aboard. Every detail was designed to project authority and wealth, to ensure that anyone who saw the vehicle understood immediately who its owner was. The 540K became one of Göring's favourite possessions, often seen at his various residences and official functions. He was known to drive it himself on occasion, though he also employed chauffeurs for longer journeys. Photographs from the late 1930s and early 1940s show the car parked outside Karenhall, Göring's palatial hunting lodge north of Berlin, and at other estates across Germany. The vehicle was a symbol of Göring's status within the Nazi hierarchy, a visible reminder of his proximity to Hitler and his control over Germany's air force and economic resources. As the war dragged on and Germany's fortunes declined, Göring's personal excesses became increasingly conspicuous, and the Blue Goose stood as one of the most tangible examples of his refusal to acknowledge the reality closing in around him. By the spring of 1945, Germany was collapsing. Allied forces advanced from the west and the east, and the Nazi leadership retreated to their final strongholds. Goring, who had been stripped of much of his authority by Hitler in the final weeks of the war, fled to the Bavarian Alps, where he believed he might negotiate a separate peace with the Western Allies. He brought with him a convoy of vehicles, staff, and personal belongings, and he retreated to the area around Berchtesgaden, a region that had long served as a retreat for senior Nazi officials. Among the possessions Göring brought with him was the Blue Goose, still gleaming despite the chaos of the collapsing Reich. On the 8th of May 1945, Germany signed its unconditional surrender, bringing an end to the European theatre of World War II. Within days, American forces of the 101st Airborne Division, the 3rd Infantry Division, and other units moved into the Berchtesgaden area, one of the last Nazi strongholds in Bavaria. The region had served as a retreat for Hitler, Göring, and other senior Nazi officials. American soldiers advancing through the area encountered luxurious villas abandoned by their owners, and warehouses filled with looted art, gold, and other treasures. Göring himself had already surrendered to American forces on the 9th of May 1945, presenting himself at a roadblock in Bavaria and expecting to be treated as a high-ranking military officer. Instead, he was immediately taken into custody, his illusions of importance shattered by the reality of his status as a war criminal. Within hours, American intelligence officers began cataloguing Göring's possessions, which were scattered across multiple locations in the Berchtesgaden area. Among the items discovered were paintings, sculptures, furniture, documents, uniforms, weapons, and vehicles. Among the possessions seized by American forces was the pale blue Mercedes-Benz roadster, found parked near one of Göring's properties. The car was in remarkably good condition despite the chaos of the final weeks of the war. Its engine was operational, its bodywork was intact, and its interior showed only minor signs of wear. American soldiers, many of whom had never seen a vehicle of such luxury and sophistication, marveled at the car's size, its distinctive color, and the quality of its construction. Photographs from the period show GIS gathered around the Blue Goose, some sitting in the driver's seat, others examining the engine or posing for pictures beside the imposing machine. The vehicle drew immediate interest from the occupying forces. American soldiers recognized the car's significance both as a piece of high-value engineering and as a trophy linked to one of the most infamous figures of the Nazi regime. The car was photographed extensively, and reports filtered back to higher command about the captured vehicle. Within weeks, decisions were being made about its fate. Unlike most captured German military equipment, which was either destroyed or shipped to testing facilities, Göring's personal car was viewed as something different, a symbol, a curiosity, and a prize worthy of preservation. The Blue Goose was transported to a secure location where other high-value items seized from Nazi officials were being gathered. American authorities conducted an inventory of Göring's possessions, and the car was officially classified as captured enemy property. For a brief period, it remained in Germany, displayed occasionally to journalists and visiting dignitaries as evidence of the excesses of Nazi leadership. Photographs from this period show the car in military custody, its pale blue finish standing out among the grey and olive drab of military vehicles. The Mercedes-Benz became a tangible symbol of victory, a reminder that the men who had terrorized Europe had been brought low, their luxuries now in the hands of their conquerors. In late 1945, the decision was made to transport the Blue Goose to the United States. American officials determined that the vehicle should be preserved and displayed as part of the war's historical record, and it was shipped across the Atlantic along with other seized items. The car arrived in the United States in early 1946, where it was initially placed in military custody. For several months, it was stored at facilities used for cataloguing and displaying captured enemy equipment, attracting attention from military personnel and the press. The vehicle's connection to Göring, who was by then on trial at Nuremberg, made it a subject of public fascination. Newspapers ran stories about the car, describing its features and speculating about its value, and the Blue Goose became one of the most recognizable pieces of Nazi memorabilia in American hands. The car's next chapter began in 1946, when it was put on public display as part of touring exhibitions showcasing captured German equipment and war trophies. These exhibitions were organized by the War Department and by civic organizations, and they were designed to educate the American public about the war effort and to showcase the material evidence of Allied victory. The displays traveled to cities across the United States, including New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, Boston, and Washington, D.C., drawing enormous crowds eager to see relics of the defeated enemy. The Blue Goose was often the centerpiece of these displays, positioned prominently in exhibition halls or outdoor venues, surrounded by ropes or barriers to keep visitors at a distance. Placards explained the car's history and ownership, describing Göring's role in the Nazi regime and the circumstances of the vehicle's capture. Photographs from these exhibitions show long lines of visitors waiting to view the Mercedes-Benz, with families gathering around the car and children pointing at its distinctive features. For many Americans, the Blue Goose was their first encounter with the kind of luxury that Nazi leaders had enjoyed while their armies devastated Europe and murdered millions. The touring exhibitions were immensely popular, attracting hundreds of thousands of visitors in major cities and tens of thousands even in smaller venues. Newspapers covered the exhibitions extensively, publishing photographs of the Blue Goose and interviewing visitors about their reactions. Many visitors expressed shock at the car's size and luxury, unable to reconcile the vehicle's beauty with the evil of its former owner. Others focused on the technical aspects, admiring the engineering and craftsmanship, while condemning the man who had commissioned it. The exhibitions reinforced the narrative of Allied victory and moral righteousness, providing tangible evidence that the war had been fought against an enemy that deserved to be defeated. As the touring exhibitions concluded, the Blue Goose found a more permanent home. In 1948, the vehicle was acquired by Mel Grinstead, a California automobile collector who had built a private museum dedicated to rare and historically significant cars. Grinstead purchased the Mercedes-Benz from the US government for a reported sum of around $5,000, a modest price even at the time, though the exact terms of the sale remain unclear. Grinstead recognized the car's value both as a piece of automotive engineering and as a historical artifact, and he displayed it at his museum alongside other rare vehicles. The Blue Goose became a featured attraction, drawing visitors who wanted to see the car that had once belonged to one of Hitler's closest associates. Under Grinstead's ownership, the car was maintained in good condition, though it saw little active use. The engine was kept in running order, the bodywork was preserved, and the interior remained largely as it had been during Goring's ownership. Grinstead occasionally loaned the vehicle to other exhibitions and historical displays, ensuring that it remained in the public eye. The car appeared at automotive shows, military museums, and historical commemorations, always identified prominently as Goring's personal Mercedes-Benz. Its distinctive pale blue finish and luxurious fittings made it instantly recognizable, and it became one of the most photographed cars of its era. In the 1970s, ownership of the Blue Goose changed hands again. The vehicle was sold to a Canadian collector, Tom Monahan, who added it to his private collection of rare automobiles. Monahan, who had made his fortune in the pizza industry as the founder of Domino's Pizza, was an avid car enthusiast with a particular interest in historically significant vehicles. Under his ownership, the Blue Goose continued to be displayed at exhibitions and automotive events, often appearing at concours d'elegance and vintage car shows across North America. Monahan ensured that the car was meticulously maintained, with periodic restoration work to preserve its original condition. The vehicle's historical significance, combined with its rarity and provenance, made it one of the most valuable pieces in Monahan's collection. The car's association with Goring remained both its greatest asset and its most controversial aspect. While automotive enthusiasts admired the 540K for its engineering and design, the vehicle's history as a possession of a Nazi war criminal raised ethical questions about its display and ownership. Some argued that objects like the Blue Goose should be preserved as reminders of history, tangible evidence of the regime's excesses, and the individuals who enabled its crimes. Others felt uncomfortable with the idea of private collectors profiting from items connected to the Holocaust and the broader atrocities of the Nazi era. These debates intensified over the decades, particularly as public awareness of the Holocaust deepened and as museums and collectors grappled with how to responsibly handle Nazi-era artifacts. Despite these controversies, the Blue Goose remained a fixture of automotive history. In the 1980s and the 1990s, the car continued to appear at major exhibitions, often alongside other vehicles from the same era. It was featured in books about classic cars, documentaries about World War II, and articles exploring the fate of Nazi leaders' personal possessions. The vehicle's condition remained excellent, a testament to the quality of its original construction and the care taken by its successive owners. Each public appearance generated renewed interest in the car's story, with journalists and historians examining its journey from the Bavarian Alps to North American collections. By the early 2000s, the Blue Goose had become one of the most well-documented examples of a Mercedes-Benz 540K. Automotive historians had traced its production, catalogued its unique features, and verified its connection to Goring through period photographs and documents. The car's chassis number 100E9143 matched records from Mercedes-Benz's archives, confirming its identity and provenance. Researchers also uncovered additional details about the car's specifications, including the custom bodywork, the reinforced panels, and the luxury fittings that set it apart from other 540K roadsters. This documentation helped establish the Blue Goose as not just a historically significant vehicle, but also as an important example of pre-war German coach building at its finest. In 2009, the Blue Goose changed hands once more, selling at auction for $3.5 million. The sale attracted significant media attention, and the car's Nazi provenance generated both interest and criticism. The buyer, whose identity was not publicly disclosed, was reported to be a private collector with a focus on historically significant automobiles. Under this ownership, the Blue Goose was displayed occasionally at select events, though it largely remained out of the public eye. Today, the Blue Goose is recognized as one of the most famous surviving examples of a Mercedes-Benz 540K and one of the most notorious pieces of automotive history connected to the Nazi regime. The car has appeared in numerous books, documentaries, and museum exhibitions, and it serves as a focal point for discussions about the legacy of World War II and the ethical questions surrounding the preservation and ownership of Nazi-era artifacts. Its pale blue-grey finish remains as distinctive as ever, and the car's mechanical condition continues to be maintained to a high standard, ensuring that it can still be driven when necessary. The vehicle's journey from Goring's possession to its current status as a collector's item reflects broader trends in how societies remember and engage with the material culture of the Nazi era. In the immediate aftermath of the war, captured items like the Blue Goose were seen primarily as trophies, symbols of Allied victory and Nazi defeat. Over time, as the full scope of the Holocaust and Nazi atrocities became more widely understood, these objects took on a different meaning. They became witnesses to history, tangible reminders of a regime that had caused immense suffering and destruction. Museums and collectors faced increasing scrutiny over how they displayed such items, with calls for greater contextualization and sensitivity to the victims of Nazi crimes. For the Blue Goose specifically, its status as a luxury automobile has complicated these discussions. Unlike military equipment or official regalia, the car was a personal possession, a symbol of Göring's vanity and greed, rather than of the Nazi war machine itself. This has led some to view it as less directly connected to the regime's crimes, while others argue that Göring's wealth was built on looting, corruption, and the exploitation of occupied territories, making the car an indirect product of those crimes. The technical significance of the Blue Goose also cannot be overlooked. As one of the finest examples of a Mercedes-Benz 540K Special Roadster, the car represents a high point in pre-war automotive engineering and design. The 540K series showcase Mercedes-Benz's ability to combine performance, luxury, and craftsmanship in a single package. And the Blue Goose, with its custom features and meticulous construction, exemplified those qualities. Automotive historians and enthusiasts continue to study the car, not just for its connection to Goring, but for what it reveals about the state of German coach building and engineering in the late 1930s. The vehicle's survival, despite the destruction of the war and the passage of decades, has provided valuable insights into the materials, techniques, and design philosophies of the era. The question of what should happen to objects like the Blue Goose remains unresolved. Some argue that they belong in museums where they can be displayed with appropriate historical context and used as educational tools to teach about the Nazi regime and its leaders. Others believe different paths are appropriate. These debates continue to shape how the vehicle is presented and understood, ensuring that its history remains a subject of ongoing reflection and discussion. Some argue that private ownership is acceptable if the history is acknowledged and the items are preserved for future generations. Others believe such objects should be destroyed or returned to the countries from which they were looted, especially when they were acquired through theft or coercion. The Blue Goose, having passed through multiple owners and countries, embodies these tensions and serves as a case study in how societies grapple with the material legacy of the past. Recently, efforts to document and preserve the histories of Nazi-era artifacts have intensified. Museums, archives, and research institutions have worked to catalogue the provenance of objects connected to the regime, tracing their origins, ownership, and movements over time. The Blue Goose has been the subject of several such investigations. Researchers have examined documents, photographs, and testimonies to establish its complete history. These efforts have confirmed many details about the car's production, customization, and use during Göring's ownership, and they have shed light on its journey through American and Canadian hands. The work of these researchers helps ensure that the story of the Blue Goose is preserved with accuracy and rigor, and it provides a foundation for future scholarship and public engagement. The cultural impact of the Blue Goose extends beyond automotive and historical circles. The car has appeared in films, television programs, and popular media as a symbol of Nazi excess and the spoils of war. Its distinctive appearance and dramatic history make it a compelling subject for storytelling. It has been featured in narratives that explore themes of power, corruption, and the moral complexities of preserving objects connected to atrocity. These representations have helped keep the car's story in the public consciousness, so that new generations encounter its history and grapple with the questions it raises. For collectors and enthusiasts of classic automobiles, the Blue Goose occupies a unique position. It is admired for its rarity, engineering, and beauty, yet it also reminds us that objects we cherish can carry complex and troubling histories. The tension between appreciating the car as a work of automotive art and acknowledging its connection to a war criminal is not easily resolved. This duality has made the Blue Goose a subject of fascination and debate within the collector community, and opinions vary widely on whether such items should be celebrated, studied, or removed from view. The Mercedes-Benz 540K platform has become one of the most sought-after classic cars in the world, with surviving examples commanding prices in the millions of dollars. The Blue Goose, with its unique provenance and features, is among the most valuable of these. Its connection to Goring adds a layer of historical significance that sets it apart from other 540K models, although that same connection complicates its status. The car sits at the intersection of automotive history, World War II history, and the broader questions of how societies remember and engage with the past. It is a machine, a symbol, and a relic all at once. The decades pass and the generation that lived through World War II is diminishing, and so the importance of preserving objects like the Blue Goose becomes both more urgent and more contested. These items serve as physical links to events that are increasingly distant, offering tangible connections to a past that might otherwise grow abstract or be forgotten. At the same time, the passage of time has not eased the ethical questions surrounding their ownership and display. The Blue Goose, whether in a private collection or on public display, continues to provoke reflection on the nature of memory, the responsibilities of preservation, and the meanings we attach to the objects that survive history's upheavals. Today, the exact location and ownership of the Blue Goose remain subjects of interest and occasional speculation. While the car is known to be in private hands, it continues to appear at select exhibitions and events, always drawing attention and commentary. Each appearance renews discussions about its history and significance, ensuring that the story of Hermann Göring's personal Mercedes-Benz remains a living part of automotive and historical discourse. The car's pale blue-grey finish, its luxurious interior, and its powerful engine are all preserved, a testament to the skill of its original builders and the dedication of those who have cared for it over the decades. The story of the Blue Goose is ultimately a story about the afterlife of power. Hermann Göring, who once commanded armies and amassed a fortune built on theft and corruption, died by suicide in his prison cell at Nuremberg in 1946, just hours before his scheduled execution. His art collection was returned to its rightful owners, his estates were seized and repurposed, and his name became synonymous with greed, brutality, and moral bankruptcy. Yet, the car he commissioned, the vehicle that once carried him through the landscapes of Nazi Germany, survived. It outlived him by decades, passing from conquerors to collectors, from symbols of victory to objects of reflection. In its survival, the Blue Goose offers a paradox. It is both a monument to a man who deserved no monuments and a reminder of a time that must never be forgotten. The vehicle stands as evidence of what was lost, what was won, and what endures. A gleaming artifact from a dark chapter of history that continues to shape our understanding of the past and our responsibilities to the future. If you found this video insightful, watch what happened to Hermann Göring after the war next. It is a deep look at his capture, his trial at Nuremberg, and his final hours before his death. Like this video, subscribe, and hit the bell for more history inside. Thanks for watching.